This is a call to order, and it is my great honor to be able to welcome you to the 64th annual reunion of the 87th Infantry Division. It is a great joy to see so many people here, and particularly some new people who have felt very warmly welcome, and that's very much in the 87th tradition. I'd like to ask everyone to stand for the national anthem. Say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the hope of the brave? If you'll join me with our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now, before we have the invocation, I'd like to draw your attention to the missing man table. Throughout our history, we've always had missing soldiers. They were usually killed in action, but could not be found, and with more modern armament, could never be found. The message of the missing in action warrior is that sacrifices are required at every level, at every war. And this is our remembrance of the sacrifice for every war from the American Revolution right through to our current engagement. So I invite your attention to that and ask your reverent thoughts for the souls of those who have given their lives for our country. If you just take a moment of silence, please. Thank you. I'm going to ask Tom Hewlett if he would read the invocation that Bob Purple wrote.
Let us pray. Dear Father of us all, for many years, we veterans in the 87th Infantry Division, along with very supportive wives, have gloried in our fellowship and memorable events of past reunions. As our numbers decline, our friendship with other veterans and their loved ones strengthens and becomes more cherished. You brought us home from Germany, O Lord, and it is through your grace that we have been able to meet annually and enrich our comradeship. We are proud to have been an important element in the victory over Nazi Germany. Recent reunions would not have been possible without the love, interest, and dedication of our children and grandchildren, who have picked up the banner and established the 87th Infantry Division Legacy Association. It is through their efforts that we gather here tonight. As veterans, we are humbled by their love, respect, and patriotism. The future of this organization is in strong and dedicated minds and hands, and they will proceed with thoughtful and wise decisions. We know that they are strong, patriotic citizens who will endeavor, with the help of brothers and sisters throughout this great country of ours, to keep it ever stalwart and strong. We are grateful for our freedom, secure living, and the love and support from family and friends. May we all be blessed with a safe journey till we meet again. Amen.
Thank you, Tom. You may be seated. Of the 87th Infantry Division Legacy Association. The serving this past year as president was Jim Oakes, a son of Preston Oakes, headquarters 3rd Battalion, 345th. Please, if you'd stand, thank you. I'd like to ask Dennis McCarthy if he'd stand. He is first vice president and a nephew of George Watson, who is a member of M Company 346. Would Corinne Headley stand? She is second vice president. She is the granddaughter of John Biden of A346. Jean Petrick is secretary, and she is the daughter of John Olson, I Company 347. And treasurer Vince Krantz, son-in-law of Robert Carmod, H Company 347. Our assistant secretary for membership, Tim Muhlenberg, he's the son of Ivan Muhlenberg, 549th AAA Battalion, Battery C. Yeah. And Webmaster Preston Durr, son of Whitelaw Durr of D Company 345th. The editor of the Golden News, the Golden Acorn News Legacy Edition is Mark Roth. Mark, would you stand? The historian is Jim Ogden III, son of James Ogden Jr., L Company 346. Barbara Strang is part of that team, and she is the daughter of Ted Anderson, F Company 347. Quartermaster is Tina Charlie, granddaughter of Marlon Crum, B 346. Our veteran advisors are Tom Burgess, A 345th. Tom. John McCall, M347. And Bob Purple, A346, who regrettably could not be here today, but he's here in spirit. Let's give him a round of applause. Now, our past legacy presidents are Tom Hewlett, 2008. Tom, would you stand, please? He's followed by Craig Stegmeyer. And he was succeeded by Ronald Crum. The next came Jim Higgins. Not least, we have Karen Lilly, who's the daughter of Bob Purple, and Thank you both. I want you to enjoy your dinner, and we will get back to you after the dinner. I hope that you have enjoyed your dinner, and that if you haven't finished your dessert, you're working assiduously on dispatching it. We're ready for the next portion of our program, and preparatory to introducing our guest speaker, I want to say a couple of words about a remarkable heritage that the United States Army has. And that is fathers and sons, grandfathers and grandsons. And that heritage has benefited the Army tremendously. When we think of great heritages, great lineal service, what comes to mind is General Arthur MacArthur, General Douglas MacArthur. When you think of grandsons and grandfathers, you think of the heritage of Georges Patton Jr., had a great family background of military service. And in more recent times, Creighton Abrams, who came to the relief of Bastogne, and John Abrams, who also served in Vietnam with great honor. This kind of heritage has yielded great benefits to our country. The man that is going to speak to us tonight comes from just such a family. Our speaker has a father who served as a major general. He had a distinguished military career, both in combat, and his final assignment was the Major General of the Military District of Columbia, Military District of Washington, D.C. And our speaker tonight has a distinguished record in combat leadership and as a leader in the strategic area of leadership. What impressed me most about him is that in 1 year he received a Silver Star for gallantry in action, 2 Bronze Stars, and was wounded 4 times. I think General Douglas MacArthur put it better than anyone I've ever heard. He said, the greatest honor that can come to a soldier is to shed his blood for his country. It is with great honor and privilege that I introduce Colonel William Gavan. Would you give him a warm round of applause?
My wife has told me to make this short. I always do what she says to do. I gotta begin to tell you what an honor it is for me to be here tonight. Whoever thought of this was a genius. It's just fantastic what you do. For all of you here tonight, I'm going to talk to you about a few things I think are important about what you do, what you should do in the future. It's been a big day for me in the next couple of days. First of all, I got a chance to see my friend Jim Oakes for the first time in 50 years. I cannot begin to tell you what a great company commander he was at the United States Military Academy, what a good friend he's been over the years, and he's always been very kind to me and my family. And I deeply appreciate that. And it shows your wisdom in selecting him as your past president. So I thank you, my friend. been a great time for me. I think being around World War II, veterans who have served their country with distinction, is an unbelievable experience for a war horse like me. Closer, Kathryn, great. Poor Mike, I always listen to her. She's a daggone genius. That's what I call her, Kathryn the Great. Not smarter than me, I'll tell you that. But anyway, Fred Whitaker, thank you so much for your visits. I congratulate Mr. Dennis McCarthy on his selection as a new president of this organization. What a great distinction. And for all of you here in the 87th Division Legacy Association, a brilliant idea. And you're all here. It's marvelous. It's marvelous. I witnessed your ceremony on Thursday. Well done. As a giant attaboy. Just well done. I just looked at that. I saw people up there after that ceremony putting their hands on that monument in absolute reverence. Believe me, I understand what that is. And I salute you for it. A wonderful ceremony, and I hope you enjoyed the Infantry Museum. Let's talk a little bit of why I call you the greatest generation in American history. Because that's what you are. And we're going to talk about that a bit. The war you were involved in, there's been nothing like that in our history. Ever. It's unique. It was a war to save our very way of life. To save the very way of life of the world. There was no second place in this war. It had to be won, Germany had to be defeated, and Japan had to be defeated. We could accept nothing else. Nothing else. What amazes me is that you fought an enemy that had equal firepower. I see my friend back here in the Air Force back over here. My gunner sergeant over here. Understand what firepower is. When you fought in that war, with your 154 days of combat, you faced things I never faced. In the Battle of Bulge, there was over 2,000 German tanks involved. I never saw a tank in combat. Right before the Battle of Bulge, the Germans staged a last-ditch effort to raid our airfields and destroyed 126 of our aircraft on the ground. A lot of people don't know that. I never saw an aircraft fly on top of me, ever. And you endured all that. That's amazing. The threat of chemical weapons was there. I never experienced that. And I think the biggest thing about your war is that you were there for the duration. You came home when the war was over there. There was no one-year tour in Vietnam. There was no R&R in Hawaii with home and mom martinis. There was no 6-month battalion command tours. You were in that war to win it. Just clear and simple. And you came home when it was done. And many of our close friends, some widows here tonight that didn't come back. And we revere you. But I think I'm forgetting something. This was a war that was so unique. It was everybody's war. Everyone was at war. I was a little boy in Lexington, Virginia. My grandfather was a class of 1901 out of the military academy. We had a victory garden. Who's ever heard of a victory garden? You ever heard of a victory garden in here? A few of you. That's marvelous. He had one. Do you know what the speed limit was? The victory speed limit? 35 miles an hour. Can you imagine America today saying, you're going to drive at 35 miles an hour to support a war effort? Give me a break. You endured all that. You could not just walk into a store and buy bread and butter and stockings. You could not go down to the gas pump, the gas station, and get gas and take a little spin up the Shenandoah Valley and go on the Blue Ridge Parkway. It was rationed. It was rationed. And many of you here endured that. There's been nothing like that in our past. until you. So pop your chest up. You survived something here. And you did your cause both there, overseas, and you did your cause at home. Well, I looked down there and noticed that the prices were frozen, ration books were issued, sugar, clothing, rubber products, shoes, coffee. The first recycling program in America's history occurred in your day. The first recycling. People don't think about that. And also, the black market was born. Not too proud of that, but it was. People taking advantage of the price restrictions. So all these things occurred. But you know, that wasn't all. And I used to go down to the post office in Lexington, Virginia, because my uncle served in the war, my cousin served in the war. Everybody was gone fighting this war. But in front of my post office was a big sign that said, Rosie the Riveter. Everybody saw that sign? How many saw that sign? Raise your hand. Good. Rosie the Riveter. What happened during that war is that women took on non-traditional jobs on a massive scale. A massive scale. They worked in plants. They worked in factories. They built our airplanes. They built our tanks. You know what else they did? They raised our kids. There's a message here somewhere about the quality of women in that particular time in our lives. So pop your chest up. You did something. We've never done that since. Never before. The thing that we tend to forget a lot of times about World War II is that when we returned home from the war, what did you do? You rebuilt America and made it the #1 power in the world economically, militarily, manufacturing. You rebuilt the country to the greatest country in the world. People here today. But you did one other thing that's absolutely unbelievable. You went back overseas to the people that you had conquered and you rebuilt their country. The Marshall Plan. I view Marshall as the greatest general in World War II. Unfortunately, he was a VMI graduate. I can live with that. But I will tell you that we built Germany. We put democracy in Germany. We forgave Germany. We showed compassion. We did the same for Japan. You tell me a nation that did that. You tell me an era did all that. And I'll tell you, it'll come back to you in 1945, 1946 to 48. A marvelous, marvelous legacy. I say that this says for sure that you were the greatest generation of our time. And that title, I think, is well deserved. Let's talk just for a bit here before everybody falls asleep. We'll talk just a little bit about World War II. I've read all your brochures. Jim Oates sent me everything he possibly did. I went to West Point Atlas American Wars. I found your little blue square on there. The dot said 87 on it. I traced the little arrows where you went to all the way through it, across the line, through the Siegfried line. Marvelous. But I began to learn about World War II in a very significant manner. See, my father, too, was a great American. 5 years in the Pacific, no R&R. When it was over, he came home. But we went to Germany in 1949. I'm going to tell you this story. When we went to Germany, I got a chance to see the battlefields, the platforms, the 50 caliber rounds in the buildings. Nuremberg totally destroyed. Berlin streets standing in rubble. It was just devastating to see all that. But I had a father who was not going to live. 11-year-old get away without giving him a class. So So one day in 1949, he announced to me and my mother, she's by the way 102 and a half years old right now. She'll live forever because she believes in Tiger Woods, and the reason why Tiger Woods got in trouble is all those women led him astray. I said, whatever you say, Mom. You don't argue with somebody that's 103 years old. But anyway, my dad gets in the car and he says, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a tour of the battlefield here. We're going to go to the Maginot Line, the French built, to keep the Germans out. That wasn't too smart. We're going to go see the Siegfried Line, and we're going to Bastogne. We jumped on our 1946 Chevrolet, black Chevrolet, with a heater and no radio. We took off. We went all over these battlefields, through the Maginot Lines, across Belgium, into France, back around, into Germany, into Remagen, saw the bridge that we crossed, that we entered Germany. We finally ended up in a small town called Bastogne. And when we got to Bastogne, my dad looked over the back seat of his car with those steely blue eyes, and he said these great words, boy, put the damn comic book down, you're going to learn something important today. My father was something like E.F. Hutton. When he talked, you better listen. We went into Bastogne, he went down street by street, he described to me what occurred. We went into the Nuts Museum. It was named the Nuts Museum because General McAuliffe was the acting division commander of the 101st during the Battle of Bastogne. General Taylor was home doing business back in the United States. He missed that fight. When the Germans came in to demand the surrender of the 101st, General McAuliffe met him on the battlefield and responded with one word, nuts. General Patton thought that was great. They say he really laughed about that. That's what his response was. Well, we went in that museum and we saw all those things. All things you've done. It's, even for an 11-year-old, that's something. But we went from display to display to display, and he told me everything was going on there. Then we went outside the museum, and we mounted up some stairs and went up to a 5-pointed star. I don't know if it's still there or not. On each point of that star, in a direction, it told you what happened there. Over there, great neighbors broke through to Bastogne with the Lake Tank Company. Over there, this happened. Over there, that happened. Your organization was about 20 miles north, passing through. Followed your line there. But while I was up there on that star, a blinding revelation came to me. A giant flash of light. And that was this. That following this presentation by my father, there was going to be a quiz. So I better gear down and listen to this, or I'll be back in this damn 5-pointed star for 3 or 4 days. We got back in that car, he hadn't started the motor. He said, boy, what did you learn? And I began to recite to him. I passed that quiz. 11-year-old boy can remember all that off the top of his head. I can remember everything that's said and all the brave acts that occurred in that war. Col Gavan never disappointed. Let's talk a little bit about your combat record. You've read it all. I've read it all. I got in every daggone book I could find and started reading about you. And I found story after story, unbelievable heroism, major combat, just unbelievable. But it was a pure joy for me to read about that, to read about your experience. I got the Atlas of American Wars and reread it and reread it. You went into combat on 8 December 1944. You fought hard in the Saar region. Then all of a sudden, all hell broke loose. The giant Ardennes offensive came into play. They ran 2 Panzer armies up the Ardennes. And only done that 3 times before in the German history. They call us flat-footed. They about killed everybody in the 28th Division. Overran things, Bastogne held. Amazing time. The 87th Division was assigned to Middleton's Corps, the 8th Corps of General Patton's Army. You had many other jobs before that. But I think from what I read, that the SAR battles that you fought, there was a whole lot of casualties in that war. Unbelievable casualties. But that sharpened you for the attack ahead. Because when you took on the Germans in the Battle of Bulge, they were good, they were a well-trained army, and they retreated. And they took a lot of toll doing that. But your first combat experience in the SAR helped you out tremendously. You were thrown probably into the heaviest combat in World War II. From your records of 154 days, 1 Medal of Honor, 9 Distinguished Service Crosses, and they don't give that one like Cracker Jacks. 364 Silver Stars, 1,542 Bronze Stars, 2 Distinguished Unit Citation, 1 for crossing the Rhine, the other for breaking a Siegfried line. 1,295 great Americans passed and were killed. 4,342 were wounded in battle. And 154 days. My God, what an accomplishment. What a sacrifice. 38 of you here did that. And the rest of you here read about it. These accomplishments and sacrifices must never be forgotten or ever laid to rest. I challenge everyone here to carry out the primary purpose of the 87th Infantry Division Legacy Association to keep before your country the World War II record of the 87th Infantry Division. Don't ever let it die. Thank you for having me.
Colonel, you couldn't have spoken to us more powerfully or more passionately or more rewardingly. We thank you for a great message. Thank you for being with us tonight and delivering that which we needed to hear and our families needed to hear. Thank you, sir. The next order of business has to do with the presentation of certificates of appreciation from Belgium. And Colonel, I understand you're going to do that, if that is correct.
I do what he said.
All right.
You said you do what she said. Both of them. One was over me.
Colonel Gavan, we're not going to let you rest for long, but I'd like to just share a story for those of you who are not familiar with the Certificate of Appreciation. When we gathered in Washington, D.C. a few years ago, we were privileged to have an attaché from the Belgian embassy present with us for the evening. And at that time, the veterans of the 87th who were present received the Certificate of Appreciation from the country of Belgium in appreciation for the 87th's role in participating in the liberation of Belgium. Well, every year since, it's made sense to me that we identify the veterans with us who were not there at the time of that presentation. So we have numerous certificates for you tonight, and it seems fitting that they should be presented to you by Col Gavan. So I'm going to leave these with him. What he'll do is he'll read off the names of the recipients, and if you'd like to, we'd like to have you stand, and then after we're done, we can give you all a round of applause for that accomplishment. So, Col Gavan, if you would mind.
Should I read all this?
Yes.
The first award is to William Allen, Charlie 335.
So just read them all.
Okay, read them all. Second award is to Thomas Atchison, Lima 346. The next certificate is to William Burris, Charlie 347. The next certificate is to Elias Shevas, is that right?
I'm not sure.
Shevas?
Davis?
Whatever it is, it's a beautiful award. Charlie 347. Next certificate of appreciation is to Oswald Foss, 335 Preparatory. The next is to William Goss, Lima 345. The next is to Gene Kaplan, Foxtrot 346. The next is to Raymond Miles, India 347. The next to Cecil Newton, Echo 345. The next is to Charles Bucenius, Golf 345. The next is to Ray Whistler, Golf 345. The next is to Robert Wallace, Lima 346. The next is to Anthony Dawkins, Alpha 549. The next is to Joseph Bree, Bravo 346. And that concludes it.
Thank you so much. Let's have a round of applause for these great veterans. We'll have these for you to pick up after the program tonight.
Now, Karen will stay with us for another moment or so, so that she can thank the volunteers who made this such a wonderful weekend.
Just to start with an order of business, I understand that some of you may be charged more for your parking when you leave than you should be. So please check your bill when you are checking out, and the rate that you were promised when you signed up for this event was $3 a day. So just check that before you leave. So now that that's over, I just want to say what a wonderful time I've had being here with you all for the last few days. It's just been incredibly fulfilling and moving to see the camaraderie and love that exists here. It's just very, very touching. And you all know that an event like this can't take place without many, many hands and many, many hearts. So I'd like to take just a few minutes to identify those folks who worked so hard to make this so special. As most of you were at the dedication on Thursday, that was organized by Jim Oakes. He tirelessly worked on that the entire year, running to and from Fort Benning and the National Infantry Museum to make sure every I was dotted and T was crossed, and we all benefited from it. He had with him Tom Burgess leading the dedication ceremony, and Eldon Gracie and Guy Millard participating in that event. So let's give them a nice round of applause. Thank you, Jim. It's hard work. That day we also had bus captains, Tom Hewlett and Tim Muhlenberg. Tim Higgins has been with us throughout the week with his trusty video camera, making sure he saves all of these events and highlights for posterity, and as you probably know, they'll be available on the website. So thank you, Tim. Preston Durer, who is not with us, he had to go home, but as you know, he's the webmaster, and he was there on Thursday with his camera, making sure that he recorded still photographs for us on the website. And no event like this can happen without folks running registration. Joan Salata and Pat Hewlett took the charge and took it well. Thank you. And our quartermasters guaranteed that you could get a memento of the 87th, and that's Millie and Tina Shawley. Incidentally, both of those teams worked overtime. They worked when we said we were closed, and we all really appreciate that. Let's see. Today, I hope you are all able to make the memorial service. That was organized and led by Corrine Headley and participated in by John McAuliffe, Dick Manchester, Vince Krantz, and Tim Muhlenberg. It was a beautiful, meaningful service, and we deeply appreciate that. I hope you were able to get to all or most of the educational forums. If not, again, you can get those on the website at the video link. They're wonderful. We had 2 presentations by the Watson team made up of George Watson, Dennis McCarthy, and Brian McCarthy. We had Dennis Lennon and Ron Crum, and today Tim Higgins. So thank you all for that. We have, of course, the hospitality room, which will be open after the program tonight, just so that we can say our farewells and enjoy spirits together. This was run by Craig Stegemeyer and Ron Crum. They did a wonderful job, again, staying open until the wee hours of the morning so that we could tell stories and jokes and share friendship. So thank you so much for I've told a number of people that it's the GON, the Golden Acorn News, that keeps us together when we're apart, and it's the hospitality room that brings us together when we're here. So that is just so special, so special. And I want to thank Fred Whitaker for accepting the invitation to MC us tonight. Thank you. And I am deeply and most grateful to all of you who served for us so that we could be free. Veterans of the 87th, you're the men who bring us here. Thank you so much for it all.
Karen, thank you so much. You've been the heart of this whole program. And it's been a joy, the service that you have given so caringly, and we're greatly in your debt for your kind and thoughtful and effective service. Thank you, Karen. We could not allow this evening to come to a close without hearing from the past presidents of the Legacy Association. And I want to assure you that each president is going to have a chance to say a few words about his term of service. And we're limiting them to 30 minutes apiece. Well, maybe 30 seconds. But I'd like to call up Tom Hewlett first. He was our first president and came through probably the most difficult period to get the Legacy Association started. Would you welcome Tom Hewlett? Maybe it is 30 minutes.
Well, I don't want you dancing to the music while I'm talking. Well, it's good to be here. Again, my name's Tom Hewlett. My dad was Tom Hewlett Sr. He was part of the I-347 group, a group that really meant a lot to not only myself and my wife. They were very welcoming when we first arrived. So good evening to all the veterans and Acornettes, family and friends. I only have a few minutes, but I thought I might just kind of go through how we formed the Legacy Association and how that all came about. As many of you know, we do have the support of all of our sons and daughters and grandchildren and nieces and nephews and many friends. We set out to form a board, and we have a working board. Everybody has a task to do, and they're very effective at it. My wife Pat and I attended our first reunion in 1998. That happened to be the 49th reunion. I remember it well because there were certain things about that reunion that were, well, if you believe in coincidences, let's just call them that. But I turned 49 that year. The reunion was in September. I turned 49 in September. After I made contact with the 87th that winter, we were encouraged to attend the reunion, especially after we learned about my father's role in the sort of iconic photograph, the chow line photo. I guess I'll also not forget, as I learned about my dad's role in that photograph and began to talk with the men who knew him in combat, I was encouraged to call one of the people in the photograph, John Olson. He's the guy who's leaning down in the photograph, first in line. So when I got John on the phone, I said, "John, this is Tom Hewlett." And he paused a moment. He says, and I don't even know if John cursed much, but he cursed that day. He said, "Tom Hewlett," he said, "where in the hell have you been all these years?" Well, he had Tom Jr. My father passed away when he was 30 years old. I was between 6 and 7. So I never really knew about his military experience other than what my grandparents told me. And they never thought he was completely well after coming back from World War II. He spent the last couple of years in the VA hospital in Indianapolis. So anyway, it was good for me to make this contact. At the first reunion, we had a handful of sons and daughters, and excuse me, I've got to get these glasses on. I can't do this. In attendance, there might have been maybe, I can't remember exactly. If we looked at that picture, we'd probably figure it out, but I'd say maybe 4 or 5. That picture only had about 4 or 5, but we didn't have many there. But anyway, 2 people that you know, they're here tonight. Jim Oakes was there. Barb Stray, wherever she is. I don't know where she is. There she is. Of course, you know, Barb compiled a book about her father's company. And I'll never forget Barbara, maybe the first day I was there, her wisdom. And she said, it's really important that you come here at this point in time. And I really didn't quite get that. And she said, well, just look around at these men. And at that point, your numbers were starting to dwindle. You were still pretty significant. We attended the dinner just like this that night. There were probably 600 or 700 veterans there, and a very small percentage were sons and daughters. But, it gave me a chance to talk to men who actually served with my dad and knew my father. And I am so grateful that I came at that time, because almost all these men that knew my dad are gone. And so if I hadn't come when I did, I wouldn't go. Another kind of interesting event was, and I'm not going to go through all of my, what it took to find about the photograph and so forth, but it just so happens that year, that 49th reunion, Ray Miles was the national commander, and he was also my father's company commander, which I thought was pretty interesting. And John McCullough was the incoming commander that year. Without going into too much detail, that was the reunion that grabbed me, and and it's held on to me ever since. Over the next several years, as many of you will recall, the numbers of sons and daughters started increasing as the numbers of veterans started going down. And we would have these meetings every year, and we'd talk about organizing and doing something, but I never really could see a purpose for the sons and daughters. You guys have been putting on your reunions for over 50 years at that point and didn't really need any help. In fact, I will tell you, there were a group of veterans, and I think this was discussed a little bit today. There were a group of veterans who thought we were kind of uninvited guests. They tolerated us, I believe. But we came anyway. But as you began to think about disbanding your organization, you as a body actually voted to encourage the creation of a legacy association. And it was at that point I realized we actually had a mission and a purpose. So, needless to say, I was elected the first president. I'm not quite sure how that happened. Fred was there. He probably had something to do with it. I don't know. But somehow I was blessed to be the first president. So from that point, we formed a board. We are a not-for-profit organization incorporated in the state of Illinois. We sought about to get our 501c3 status, which we have, as a military education unit. And we started planning for our first reunion. That was the 60th Veterans Reunion. And this woman came up to me who I'd kind of gotten to know a little bit over a couple of years. Her name was Karen Lilly. And she said, hey, Tom, I'd be willing to work on this reunion if you would co-chair with me. And so I thought, okay, I can do that. And I think I did a pretty good job. I got a good co-chair person, don't you think? Huh? So she's done a great job. I've kind of filled in here and there. I've been a sounding board. But next year, I told her she's on her own. She's completely trained, and I think she can do the last one on her own. Finally, just let me tell you, the connection that Pat and I have had and continue to have with the association is very fulfilling. And as many of you know, as I've said, my father passed away at a young age. I'm grateful that I've had the chance to meet men that knew my father and tell me about him during combat. Tonight's an opportunity to say thank you to the veterans and acornets who were so gracious to Pat and I when we first came and continue to encourage our participation. One of those two special spouses are here tonight. Pat Olson, her husband John, is in the picture. Pauline Miles, Ray Miles' wife was here up until last night, had to return today. Both of those gentlemen, Ray and John, are both national commanders. And of course, I can't go without being reminded of men who encouraged me, at least, and all of us during those early days when there were when the majority of you wanted this organization, but there were some folks who had been around for a while who kind of thought they had sort of done it and it didn't need to be continued. But veterans like John McCullough, Tom Burgess, Fred Whitaker, Ray Rissler, Bob Purple, and Bernie Klimmer, and really so many others that I cannot name tonight. But lastly, we owe so much to others who have served the fledgling Legacy Association Board of Directors as presidents and so many significant positions. I'm really proud of all of you for your continued dedication and hard work, and I really honestly enjoy telling people about this organization. While this is sort of our last big event, it will not be the last time we provide the opportunity, as you know, to stay connected. We look forward to seeing all of you in Pittsburgh. In the meantime, may God bless and keep each one of you, and we shall not forget the contributions of our veterans and families to the strength of the United States of America. And now let me introduce the beginning of a great group of gentlemen who followed me. This one is a first-class guy. He probably lives about 45 minutes from me, and his parents lived about half an hour from me. Craig Stegelmeyer, his dad, Billy, was a past national commander in 2005. He was a strong advocate of the VBOB organization in St. Louis, and please help me welcome Craig Stegelmeyer.
I'm surprised your talk was so short. I was expecting something a little more in line with my half hour. Well, I want to give you a little bit of a background. Tom's done a heck of a job of setting the stage for the Legacy organization. My dad, Billy, grew up in Staunton, Illinois, which, as Tom said, is very close to where he lives. He graduated from high school in May of 1944, and by July 1st, he was in the Army. He didn't know where he was going. He went to basic training. He was going to become one of those replacement troops. And so he kind of went through basic pretty quickly. They threw him on a boat. He wound up in England. He wound up on a 40 and 8, and they moved him forward. And he still didn't know really who he was attached to. By then, the 87th had started things. Second week in December, he got to join things. He spent his 19th birthday with a good buddy of his, Bob Conradi. I see Sue over there, and yeah, there's Jean. And they spent Christmas in a foxhole, singing Christmas tunes, listening to A Quiet Night that hadn't been a quiet night very often, and then they got back into it. It was just a heck of a ride for them. My love and fascination with the 87 started when I was in high school, and I needed to come up with a topic for a history report. And my dad, like I've heard about so many of our heroes that are in this room and those that are gone, didn't talk much when we were kids, or didn't talk at all about World War II. Pretty, as I think you mentioned so well, pretty harrowing experience, pretty unbelievable experience that these guys went through. But that big, thick division history book was wonderful fodder for a high school report that I wound up getting an A on. But the wonderful thing about it, for me anyway, is it cracked the door for me to be able to talk to my dad about World War II and what his experiences were. Because again, if I was waiting for him to bring it to the dinner table, it wasn't going to happen. It was only when I pulled him. And I think
the exercise that Tim took us through today to create a protocol to try to pull these stories out are so important. And my dad got interviewed. The St. Louis chapter of the Veterans Battle of the Bulge did a really nice job of trying to archive stories and information. They set up storytelling versions where these guys go to schools, as many of you have, and it is just so important to tell those stories because truly the way they come from you, they can't come from anywhere else. So that's terrific stuff. My dad's first reunion was in 1986, and he actually had a buddy from Staunton, Illinois. Neither one of them really wanted to get involved and talk about the war until they became older people who maybe saw their mortality on the horizon. And they talked each other into going to their first reunion. And he and Mom attended 20 straight reunions when he was elected commander. And the only one they missed was the 9/11 one that many of you missed because you were looking to fly on that day when none of us were flying, at least unless we had a uniform on. So I got involved at the Buffalo reunion. I showed up at that sons and daughters meeting that Tom talks about. I really didn't understand the purpose of the group, like Tom described. I mean, they said, "Oh, you got to go to." My mom and dad said, "Oh, you got to go to the sons and daughters meeting." And so I went into this room, bunch of people sitting around it who have now become good friends. But I, being a first timer, of course, I kind of sat back kind of quietly. I know some can have a hard time believing that. But I sat back and observed, and I thought, what's going on? And then there was this meeting of the executive committee that was kind of a top secret meeting. You're not allowed to go to that. They're going to do their business, and we'll have a public meeting. And I just was kind of scratching my head. Then Dad became commander the next year. We went to Chicago. I actually brought my wife and kids up. They got to see Grandpa. And then Carlisle we did. And then, of course, the final one, which had been greatly advertised by some as being the 59th and final reunion. But a lot of us were saying, this is a story that needs to continue to be told. We got some wonderful technologies like that camera Tim constantly keeps running and the ability to post this stuff on the internet. And that is our stated objective. I mean, that's the thing that makes us a bona fide educational capture organization. And it's terrific technologies that have kind of caught us up at a perfect time when that happens. The last thing I really want to do is obviously comment that I love to party, and I think those, while Karen said the GAN is the glue that holds us together when we're away, I think having that hospitality suite and making sure there's something to drink and eat goes a long way to keep us together, keep us talking, let us share time with our family, as well as our friends that we maybe don't see so often and unfortunately may never see again. So it gives us a really unique opportunity. So that's become my personal mission. I love a good party anyway. We were always partying at my mom and dad's house when we were in high school. They supported that. And a good party goes a lot in building camaraderie. My dad took one of the honor flights in 2009, and I'm assuming everybody knows about the honor flights, but if you're a veteran in this room and you haven't taken an honor flight, it is a phenomenally special experience. I heard Dad's side of it. I really couldn't fully appreciate it until I was, earlier this year, stuck in Washington in a connection in National Airport. And I had about a 4-hour layover. I had a little lunch, and then I heard a bagpiper, and I thought, what's going on? And it was an honor flight arriving. And of course, the first veteran comes off in a wheelchair with his escort, and they pace him. And a busy airport where everybody I mean, normally in the airport, they don't give a darn about you. They're focused on getting to their plane, not missing a connection, whatever. But these guys came off one by one, and the entire airport went dead, except for the applause for these gentlemen. And it was just a phenomenal experience. So part of that honor flight is they have a mail call where they give the family an opportunity to write a letter to the veteran on the airplane, and they get to read those on the flight on the way to D.C. And I'm going to read you the letter to my dad. It was written to him, but it applies to a lot of you. Dear Dad, and I'm sorry I got these goofy glasses on, I can't wear my glasses. Thank you for everything you've done to preserve and defend the United States of America. From your service in World War II to the efforts in organizing the DAV transportation network for the east side of St. Louis, you're a wonderful example to us and our children of the type of American it takes to make this country the most special in the world. Your example of showing our children that this country is only great because of lots of hard work, not slick words. Nobody ever won a hard battle with talk, and your repeated examples of self-sacrifice for the good of others, that you have never met exactly what we strive to show our children as an example of selfless service. Dad, we're so happy that you and the other heroes on your plane will be able to spend the day witnessing firsthand the appreciation of a grateful nation that clearly sees who made it possible for us to live in the greatest country on the face of earth. Our fear is the same as President Reagan's. Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. Hopefully, your grandchildren will take your example as a lead to keep that fear alive and produce their own generation of patriots. Thanks again for all you do and the example you set. We hope you have a wonderful day. All our love, Craig, Barbara, and my oldest son, Billy Ernst Stegemeyer II, Maggie, and Charles. We met the flight that night when they came back from D.C. at the St. Louis airport. A lot of crying people, a lot of crying veterans. It was just a wonderful, wonderful experience. And again, that letter was written by Dad, but my love and prayers for everyone here is intense as the love I have for my parents. My involvement in the 87th is committed to honor and ensure that your contribution in defeating the most horrible force that ever appeared on the face of the earth is not forgotten. Thank you. I didn't get into discussing how I was somehow talked into being the second president of the Legacy organization. I think I was just standing there, and it was the classic Army volunteer. Everybody else took a step back. I didn't realize they moved. I don't know, Ron probably wittingly and willingly accepted his challenge as the third president of the 87th Infantry Division Legacy Association. So I'd like to introduce Ron Crum and ask him to spend his hour with us.
Sitting back there watching Tom walk up with his piece of paper with his notes. I see Craig come up with his technology and an iPhone. So I had to quick write something on the program so that I could bring something to the podium. But thanks, Craig. They're tough acts to follow. And watch how short this is going to be. Basically, Ron Crum, the Hershey guy, the cannon. But my father was Malin Crum. A simple man, the wisest man I ever knew. He was my best friend, I thought. He passed in 2007, but this man had a 6th grade education. Grew up on a little farm. His mother passed away when he was about 12, and ended up, that was his life growing up. And then the war happened, and he went off to see Europe. But I love him. I think about him every day. But that was my dad. First reunion, Fort Mitchell. What an incredible sight to walk into that reunion hall. John McAuliffe's here leading that. We met Lester Atwell. If you remember who he was, he wrote the book Private. He and his nephew were there at that reunion with their books. They were the first people we met in the parking lot, and what a great first person to meet coming to the 87th reunion at Fort Mitchell. I became president in 2009 at the Washington reunion, and yeah, Craig, it was like Tom walks up and does his gentle, persuasive way of talking to you, saying, "Hey, I think I think you'd make an okay president for the next year." So I said yes, and that was the year that we worked hard on attaining the 501c3 status for the association. And Tom remembers a lot of phone calls and correspondence going back and forth in those days, and we got that accomplished. So that's a good moment of remembering. Often think of what we're going to take back from each reunion. The thing I'm going to take back, especially this year, is I'm going to especially remember 3 guys from Fargo that came this year, and seeing the wonderful enthusiasm that each first-timer felt coming this year, because I think it reminds us each of our first time coming and the excitement that we felt when we met somebody and made a connection and took that friendship, and we'll have these friendships, I think, forever in our hearts. So maybe I'll just leave with this and take it in the context that it said. You remember in Band of Brothers when they're interviewing Dick Winters in one of the at the end of the series, and I think he says that his grandson or grandchild asked him if he was a hero. And he said no, but he served in a company of heroes. I think if anyone were to ask the group here some type of question like that, I think we'd respond that we served for a division of heroes, and that is the joy that each one of us has had by serving, especially as president of this association. So thanks a lot. That's all I have. And with that, I'd like to introduce Tim Higgins from the great state of Minnesota, and he'll bring the next comment.
Thank you, Ron. No paper. Keep getting shorter, right? I would like to share with you, though, a brief history of how I became involved in the 87 and the association reunions. I'm going to go back when I was young. You heard the common theme. Never heard much about World War II. I'm blessed to be here with my father, John Higgins, 8346, my son and daughter. And never really heard much about that, but there's one thing I did hear a lot about. I heard about this guy named Barney. Barney Smoda. The machine gunner with my dad in the 87, and I hadn't met him, but I always heard him talk about his buddy Barney. Fast forward a number of years, and my wife and I were boating on the St. Croix River between Minnesota and Wisconsin, and Barney and Marilyn came into the Twin Cities and had a chance to visit. So we went on a boat ride together, and my first impression was, what neat people. We had a very enjoyable day. I know we certainly did. Time went forward, and my father went to 2 reunions before I became involved. He and my stepmom, Margaret, went to 2 reunions, and her health started to fail. And I can recall one time, actually a pretty tight timing, just before the Buffalo reunion, I was chatting with Dad, and he was talking about Barney and Perps and these guys that were just names, didn't mean much to me, are going to be going to the reunion, and he wasn't complaining, he wasn't fishing, wasn't asking, but I could tell that it was something he was going to miss. So long and short, I thought, well, you know, my work schedule at that time was pretty flexible, and I called him up and said, hey, would you like to go together? So we did. Hartchokes Neck was welcomed by the other family members of A346, the Purples, Carol and Lily, Bob, Phyllis, the Finleys, the Smoda family. You always have a great turnout. And I got to caution you first-timers, these reunions, they're a gateway activity to becoming involved with the 87. I attended that same sons and daughters meeting with Craig. I'm it was at Buffalo or Chicago afterwards. And at that time of discussion, you heard about that, trying to get something going, and I'm not going to rehash all of that. But I got to tell you, I was like, what do I have to offer? I wasn't in the military. My son is, my older brother is. Didn't know much about Dad's time in that. And then Barbara, who was a wealth of information, I'm thinking, I don't know anything about this, what do we have to offer? Shorten that whole thing as we got going, looking for different things to help out, odds and ends. And the organization just starting to form, found there was things that we could do without knowing a lot about the military history. Kathryn, by the way, is the lead on these projects, I assure you. Sweet as she is, I and many others would ask, hey, is something we can help with? And she always would very nice say, hey, can you help with this and help with that? And I always look forward to that. So that kind of went on for a few years. You already heard the routine about the boat ride. Yeah, Tom, at that time. Because in our bylaws, and I described that this morning at our business meeting, by our bylaws, there's a nomination committee of past presidents. Well, when you start out with one, that's kind of a small group, that was Tom. And as you saw, it was building. We had that boat ride. I didn't have a chance though, because Tom and Craig both teamed up on me. I had no clue about today. I hadn't been to a meeting yet, but let's give it a shot. Best choice I ever made. The friendships and so forth have been just phenomenal. So after I had a chance to serve, I very much enjoyed it. My role was pretty much, set up conference calls, try to get some organization going. These guys just all did a phenomenal job making everything happen. So then it came time, as Jim followed myself, he got corralled. I'm not sure you can tell your story how you got corralled. But then this year, the process was, we actually followed the structure that I described this morning with the past presidents. And Jim had reached out to me and said, hey Tim, would you take the lead on that? And I'm thinking, yeah, okay, that's fine, I'll do that. But I'm going, Jim, we don't have a boat ride. Okay. It all came together, working together. So long and short, boy, for the first time attendees, it's great. I've had a chance to talk with a number of you. It's a great gift to your veterans that you've joined us. Look for ways to get involved. It's very, very rewarding. Thank you. With that, with that, I'd like to introduce that the man is making it happen, Jim Oaks.
All I want to do is read you something from, bring me that second page. This is from your division book. After you got back to Fort Benning, they put together all the information that your history type people in the headquarters have been compiling over the years and made both the regimental books and then put all those together with the division book. And they got your commanding general, General Coolen, to write a little introduction. And I just ran across these a couple of weeks ago when Karen asked us to do this. And I think this represents what we, as Sons and Daughters and Legacy Group, are trying to do as far as preserving history. So even though this is what the general's words are, substitute that for us as an organization applying to what we're trying to do to preserve your history. That's what this book is all about. This is what the general wrote. A review of the 154 days of combat and other events of 3 years of war service from December 1942 to September 1945 is presented in this book. Individuals with their knowledge limited by the detail which confronts them personally miss much of the broader scope of the picture beyond their ken. By the way, this guy went to a nice school, K-E-N. Have you heard that used a lot? That means you're surrounded. I had to look it up, by the way. The whole scene is captured here in words and pictures to live forever so that all may know the full story. There were days and events that will never leave the minds of those who wore the golden acorn. This book, therefore, will become a priceless treasure to each of us who stood together as the division traversed its path across France, Luxembourg, Belgium, and Germany to Czechoslovakia and victory. So we're saying that we as a legacy group are trying to do what the book has done for so many, and certainly for me. I'm deeply honored to have had command of the 87th Infantry Division, I as a president this year for your group, and the privilege of having been one of you remains a source of lasting satisfaction and pride. Let each of us resolve to remember those who made the supreme sacrifice and the spirit in which the sacrifice was made. Let those who remain perpetuate the comradeship that was born of war to produce a better peace. Major General Frank Coogan. And those concluding words there are what I feel about the group that I've had an opportunity to work with in the legacy group, and certainly with so many of you veterans that I've had an opportunity to meet over the 5 or 6 years that we've been working with this. So thank you all for what you do. Last year at the reunion in Rhode Island, Dennis McCarthy, yeah, right. Dennis McCarthy came, maybe you'd better, but anyway, he was with his uncle, Lee.
George.
75 now, so I'm getting that way. George Watson, who has been a regular attendee, actually one of the few veterans who actually started out with the unit in Camp McCain and served all the way through. And he was very interested in getting involved with us and agreed to take on the position of first vice president. Not necessarily with the understanding that he would be take over as president this year. But fortunately, he was willing to do that. He coordinated our two of our sessions this morning or yesterday morning in the forums and had an excellent presentation. And we're delighted to have him take over as president for this coming year. And I'd like to introduce Dennis McCarthy to you now. Dennis?
Yeah, I just thought it was a few words, so I don't have anything written down either. But I'm really involved because of my favorite Uncle George. I really liked him as I was growing up, but when my mother got sick, I'd stay with him and we'd go for long walks and we'd talk. And I heard him talking about the Legacy Association, and I really didn't quite understand it and follow what was going on. But then I heard, gee, they're going to be in Pittsburgh. Well, I guess I really need to come and see what was going to happen. I wasn't sure about meeting a bunch of these older guys and what that was really going to mean. I came and I just fell in love with the organization. The camaraderie, I feel like I made friends that I never would have had. And it's really important for me to know so many people like this. It's I'm retired essentially, and I give my time to the Children's Museum of Pittsburgh. I only do things that I want to do, and I just feel like you are really worth me giving my time to. So I hope I can live up to what the previous presidents have done. I'm honored to be your president. Thank you.
I want to thank all of the presidents, the tremendous efforts, the great spirit that they've had. We veterans have been very blessed to have such a group of sons and daughters who have been so unselfish and so helpful and so effective. You know, for a veteran, To work with some of this technical stuff is tough. I found it very humiliating to have a second grader correct me on a computer. It's just, we're just greatly indebted to all of them for their service, and it makes it a joy to come to these reunions. I believe at this point we're going to have a raffle, and I think, Jim, you are involved in that, is that correct? And John? Mac, you're going to come up and do the raffle. Someone is going to go home with a Porsche, probably, is that it?
I'm not Jim, as you can tell, but I beat him to the stage. Life is too short for regrets, so I'm going to fix this one now. I cannot believe I had a total brain freeze when I was thanking people. How could I forget my dear friend Tom Hewlett? He was the co-chair today. So please give him a warm hand. And a special one for me is, you know, my dad couldn't be here. My mom and dad and sister couldn't be here, and my dad wrote the invocation. I told Tom, I said, I'm just having too many emotions to read it for him. So I handed it off to Tom, and I so appreciate your doing that for us, and I know my dad thanks you too.
All right. Back. Yes, sir. Oh, yeah. I don't.
As everyone knows, we have a museum over in Saint-Hubert, just off the Rue de Monde, where a famous picture was taken by the Army Signal Corps. This was taken on January 1945, and it shows a beautiful focal point of the 700-year-old Basilica in Saint-Hubert, the street leading down to it, and in the foreground is M Company 347. Now, all the soldiers you see in the foreground, I was in their platoon. I'm not in the photo, I came a week or two later, but I know all those men in the front foreground. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 of them. And that picture was taken, as I said, in January. They were going down the street. I guess they had taken the town. But fortunately, one of my squad members a few years ago gave me the names, and I said, oh yes, that looks like them. I see them. 2 of them are facing toward the front. The others are in a Jeep going down the road. And on the left side is our executive officer, Lieutenant Pearsall. You can tell he's an officer. He's got a half coat on. The officers wore those half coats in those days. And the soldier getting out of the Jeep with the rifle was my squad leader, Kelly. He was a broad-shouldered, tough guy from Philadelphia, and I kept in line. But that's that picture. And of course, we're all familiar with the I Company picture, also taken by the Army Signal Corps. And the caption on the picture says, "On the road to La Roche." Only they didn't go to La Roche. They went to Romagna and then to Marcy and all those places. La Roche is about 20 or 30 kilometers north, and it was the people there in that region were the 84th Infantry Division. And both the 84th and the 87th made sort of a pincers to pinch the enemy out. So I think we're going to have a raffle.
I think tomorrow is this man's birthday. Would it be appropriate to sing Happy Birthday to you? Happy birthday to sometime later this next week. Is that right? Huh? On the 8th. On the 8th. Okay, that's for you too, Victor.
A girl just like the girl that married dear old dad. She was a pearl and the only girl that Daddy ever had. A good old-fashioned girl with heart so true, one who loved nobody else but you. I want a girl just like the girl that married dear old dad. We found a winner, number 16. Number 16. Do you know this one? If you were in World War II, you do. Oh, how I'd love to remain in bed, for the hardest blow of all is to hear the bugler call. You gotta get up, you gotta get up, you gotta get up in the morning. Someday I'm going to murder the bugler. Someday they're going to find me dead. I'd have to take his reveille and step upon it heavily and spend the rest of my life in bed. Yeah. Anything? 19. Number 19, Daisy? All right. It's Daisy, Daisy, give me your answer due. I'm half crazy, all for the love of you. It won't be a stylish marriage, I can't afford a carriage, but you'll look sweet upon the seat of a bicycle built for two.
11.
Number 11. Number 11. Oh, DJ, you should be singing this with my man. When Irish eyes are smiling, sure 'tis like a morning spring. Mid the lilt of Irish laughter, you can hear the angels sing. When Irish eyes are happy, all the world seems bright and gay. But when Irish eyes are smiling, sure they'll steal your heart away. It's a little high for me. There's a land that I dreamed of once in a long, long
That in what? In Ireland? Where is Tipperary? In Ireland? It's a long way to Tipperary. It's a long, long way to go. It's a long way to Tipperary, to the sweetest girl I know. Goodbye, Piccadilly. Farewell, Leicester Square. It's a long, long way to Tipperary, but my heart's right there. We got to do one where the guys sing a verse and the girls sing a verse. Why can we do that all? What? Don't sit on me now, that's too easy. Let's do When She Wore a Tulip. We done that yet? When 15. Yeah. When you wore a tulip. Okay. So this fits. We'll sing, a guys will sing When You Wore a Tulip, the sweet yellow tulip, and you girls will sing what? When I wore a big red rose, right? Okay. Ready, guys? Okay. When you wore a tulip, a sweet yellow tulip, and I wore a big red rose. When you caressed me, 'twas in heaven, bless me. Girls? We need to practice this, don't we? All right, let's do it. All right. Okay, girls, we're gonna sing a bit, and when we stop, you sing. Is that okay? I mean, we guys, that's the way it is, okay? Let's start over again now. When you wore a tulip, a sweet yellow tulip, and I wore a big red rose. When you caressed me, 'twas in heaven, bless me. What a blessing, no one knows. We don't care. You made life cheery when you called me dearie. Look down where the green grass grows. All together now. Your lips were sweeter than julep when you wore a tulip, and I wore a big red rose. I mean, you gotta have both of you doing it if you gotta have this kissing stuff, right? Okay, what else? I'll pick the one. With anyone else but me, till I come marching home. And don't go walking down Lover's Lane with anyone else but me. Anyone else but me. Anyone else but me. No, don't go walking down Lover's Lane with anyone else but me. Till I come marching home. I just got word from a guy who heard from a guy next door to me. The girl he met just loves to pet and fits you to a T. So don't go under the apple tree with anyone else but me. Till I come marching home. What's that? Say it again. 18. All right. 18. All right. We always do a oompa on this one, Daisy. That's good. Daisy. That's too low. What? Oh, you must be tired of this, right? Good night, ladies. Is that it? Is that what you flew with this? Okay. Let's go home. This is the last one here, okay? All right, guys. There it is. Good night, ladies. Good night, ladies. Good night, ladies. We're going to leave you now. So merrily we roll along, roll along, roll along. Merrily we roll along o'er the dark blue sea. One more time. Good night, guys. Good night, ladies. Ladies. Gentlemen.
pray. Almighty and merciful God, we ask your blessing upon those who have gathered here at our 64th reunion of the 87th Infantry Division and legacy members, family, and friends. We assemble here to remember and commemorate this great division, which activated and saw service in World War I, and activated again the 15th of December, 1942, at Camp McCain, Mississippi. Trained in the U.S. and departed the U.S. on 4 November 1944, and entered combat in December in Metz, and accepted the surrender of Fort Diamond. As the Battle of the Bulge launched, the 87th was moved to Belgium on the southern flank and moved north again against the Bulge. By 11 January, the 87th had driven the remnants of a beaten foe from Bonnaroo, Marcy, Saint-Hubert, Grandpré, and took up a defensive position in Luxembourg, along the Luxembourg-German border, crossing the Sauer River and cracking the Siegfried Line. Late in March of 1945, the 87th fought its way across the Rhine River against heavy opposition and cleared the east banks of the river. The division crossed the Moselle River and took Koblenz. It raced east through Thuringia province and into Saxony, and then to Czechoslovakia when the war ended on May 8th. The 87th was one of the first divisions to return to the U.S. on July 11, 1945. The retraining of the division for the invasion of Japan. Thanks to our President Truman and dropping of the A-bombs, the Japanese surrendered on August 14, while we were on 30 days leave. The Golden Acorn Division, who had given a good account of itself in combat, was inactivated shortly thereafter at Fort Benning, Georgia. We remember, O Lord, the camaraderie and friendships that these reunions brought us over the years. We thank you for the good times and the healing, and seeing old friends and the sharing of stories brought us. We ask your blessing upon the 87th Legacy Group, these great sons and daughters and grandchildren who rose to honor and continue the reunions. Bless the many Division Association commanders who gave us leadership over the years, and especially all those often forgotten reunion planners. The unsung heroes whose efforts and worries made for these wonderful reunions such successes. We especially remember all the comrades who gave up their tomorrows so that we might enjoy the freedoms we enjoy today. Bless them, O Lord, and may they rest in peace. Bless also those of our comrades whom you have called to your post everlasting for their last assignment in your heavenly abode. Give them eternal rest. We ask your blessings, Lord, upon our military throughout the world today as they carry the torch which has been passed on to them now to protect the freedoms that we hold so dear today. As we take our leave of this reunion, we seek your protection back to our homes, safe winds at our back, and a safe journey home. Godspeed.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mac. I want to just leave you with a few words, and that is, it is incumbent upon every generation to decide if they are going to stand or are they going to fall. The nation relies on its youth to defend its freedom. Freedom is not free. There is a price for freedom. Thomas Jefferson said, the price of liberty, or let me put it this way. He said, the tree of liberty has to be watered with the blood of tyrants, but also of patriots. I don't want to there was a light thought I'd like to leave with you. It has to do with an incident that occurred as we were going back to the United States. There was a first lieutenant who was at the gangplank, and his job was to make sure no contraband boarded the USS West Point as it was leaving France to go to the United States. Men were boarding, the lieutenant checked them. Suddenly, a major came up riding a beautiful stallion. The major had a fine eye for excellent horseback. He lived in South Carolina, had a nice spread in South Carolina, and he wanted to take the horse home with him. The lieutenant said, "Major, the horse cannot board." The major said, "Lieutenant, the spoils of war are the right of every soldier from time immemorial." He wants to bring home the evidence of his war effort, his reward, his evidence that he has served his country. Now this went back and forth between the lieutenant and the major. Now everybody knows a junior officer cannot offend, demean, or otherwise disagree with a superior officer. But it reached a point that something had to be done. The gangplank was filling up with men that waited to come in. The lieutenant stepped back, put his right hand slowly on his right hip where he had his pistol. Now this is a beautiful bit of diplomacy. Beautiful bit of diplomacy. The lieutenant said, "Major, the choice is yours. Only one of you can board his vessel." With that, we're adjourned.
That's good.